I weep for the Ukrainian people. When Volodymyr Zelensky left Washington, D.C. and heading to Europe following the debacle in the White House on Friday, he was greeted with warm reception, enthusiastic applause from crowds, and adoring comments from European leaders all over the continent. What none of these people seem to recognize is that they have likely played right into Vladimir Putin's hands. Now, if you think that that's an exaggeration, or if you think that that's actually contrary, then probably you're one of those who have supported the Ukraine side reflexively, blindly from the beginning of this war. And now then we're starting to see the bitter fruit of that. In fact, we're starting to see the outlines of just how bitter that can be. Now, all of this is as a result of Zelensky's failure in Washington, D.C. The idea that Zelensky first came to Washington anyway, the whole purpose of the event was to sign a minerals deal. Now, from the administration's perspective, this was designed to tie the United States financially into Ukraine's future, thereby providing a modicum of security guarantees, which is what Zelensky has been asking. It was made very clear by the Secretary of State and several others that the intent of the White House was to just sign this deal, to get the minerals deal done first, and then subsequently, separately, start working on issues about the peace. That's what was supposed to happen. But instead, Zelensky started changing the terms right there in front of God and country on live television. It was being beamed all over the world. And then, of course, picked a fight with the vice president, which, it all spiraled out from there. We all know what happened there. Now, here's some of the frustration that the U.S. administration happened. This is on Laura Ingraham later that night with Caroline Levitt explaining some of the frustration of the administration.
It was President Zelensky, if you roll the tape, who actually antagonized the vice president in front of the cameras and picked a fight with him. And as President Trump said, I think it was great that the cameras were rolling because the American people and the entire world got to see what President Trump and his team have been dealing with behind closed doors in the negotiations with the Ukrainians. They've been, again, incredibly hard-headed, and all President Trump wants is peace. And in order to negotiate peace, both sides have to come to the table, both sides have to talk, and both sides in a good deal usually walk away a little unhappy. President Zelensky fails to recognize that. And again, this is not the previous administration. Joe Biden is no longer in that Oval Office. We are no longer going to just write blank checks to a war very far away without real lasting peace.
Now, that last phrase there is something we're going to hear several times in the course of this episode today, and it's really important how that's defined, because there are some real problems with how the United States defines it and with how Europe is defining it. And in fact, as we're going to see, Europe basically doesn't define it. They just use the phrase. But on the American side, they actually have something in mind. They want the war to end. President Trump has been explicitly clear, emphatically and repeatedly, that he wants the killing to stop. He wants the killing to stop on the Russian side. He wants the killing to stop on the Ukrainian side. He wants the war to end, and he wants to start getting back into normalized relations so that peace, genuine peace, can be brought back to Ukraine, to the continent, and to end the possibility of this war escalating beyond its borders. And as Caroline Levitt pointed out there, the intent of the White House was, we want to have a situation where both sides have to give something, and nobody gets everything they want. That's kind of standard for any kind of genuine general negotiations. Of course, that's just kind of generally how it works. Now, as I've talked about many times, the relative positions and the power positions between the two also weighs heavily on who has to give in to what. But there were some cards in President Trump's hand. There was some leverage, so he could have affected some. But the point being, and the intent fully, was to end the war and to get to the point of where we get to peace. Trump's preference was a ceasefire first to stop the killing quickly, because that was his primary focus, and then subsequently move toward an enduring peace. That's what he wanted to accomplish. But then we have to wonder. In fact, after this, the following morning, you had Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, was wondering, what exactly is Zelensky's plan? Because it almost looks like he doesn't want peace.
I think what has the president so frustrated and frankly angry is that it's not clear that Zelensky truly wants to stop the fighting. And he came in, even though he was warned not to, determined to litigate all of that in front of the entire world.
And then you had later on Friday night, also on Fox News, you had Zelensky himself. That Bret Baier asked him point blank, do you want to keep fighting or do you want peace? He kind of implied that he just wanted to be fighting. And then, of course, that's with the understanding that Bret Baier continued on. If you keep going down this path, then there's the possibility that the U.S. could withdraw its support entirely from Ukraine. And in that event, can Ukraine stand on its own?
So the question today is, can Ukraine win this war or hold off Russia without continued U.S. support?
It will be difficult for us. That's why I'm here. That's why we speak about the future negotiations. It will be difficult without your support, but we can't lose our values, our people. We can't lose our freedom. So a lot of people, Russians came to our territory, you know it. Russians came to our houses, and everybody saw it, video, images, a lot of things. They killed so many people. Just to forget it, just to say that Putin is a great guy? No, without us.
Yeah, I get it. The emotion, your country was actually invaded. No question about it. Now, we can argue a long time, and I have many times about the events leading up to that. We'll talk about that more later as well. But the fact is that they were invaded. So I get the emotion, and certainly lots in Ukraine. I would say the vast majority of Ukraine, nearly all of them. No one wants their country to be invaded. Now, all of them would like to have it pushed back. But as I said, that pesky balance of power thing is immune to morality. It's immune to preference. It's immune to perceptions. It's immune to anything. The balance of power, one side has military power that exceeds that of the other. And if both sides have the will to fight, then that balance of power will be determinative. So it doesn't matter if you don't want that. It doesn't matter if you say, yeah, but we can't lose because of our values. Okay, those are your values, but you got to see, this is an equation. It's not just a factor. It's an equation. And the other side of the equation, they also have a viewpoint. And to them, it's also a matter of state survival. To them, it's also a matter of, you were attacking, in their view, in the Russian view, you were attacking Russian people, Russian speakers, Russian ethnic people in the boundaries of Ukraine, and we came to their aid. You can disagree with that. It doesn't make any difference. I'm telling you, this is what they think and what they view. I just showed you what Ukraine views. Russians don't agree with his viewpoint and his interpretation of what happens. That's the point. There is an equation here. You have both sides have very different views, very different interpretations of what happened and what should happen, almost diametrically opposed, hence the war. But what counts is, in terms of this struggle, who can win and who can't. And if you're on the side of the can't, if you're on the side of just the spreadsheet, just what it is, it shows you don't have the armor, you don't have the industrial capacity, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the air power, you don't have the air defense, all of the things that go into determining who wins a war of attrition, all of them are decisively and irrevocably on the Russian side. So, rationally speaking, the side that doesn't have the power should say, in this struggle, we can't win it. We should win it. We want to win it. We would desire so, but we can't. So we have to do what it takes to bring the killing to an end, so that what we still possess, we can keep, so that we'll have a future and a hope that we can go back later and recover from all of this and have, good lives. That's what you should be doing. But instead, we have the Ukraine leader rejecting the chance that President Trump put on a platter, a gold platter that says, listen, we're trying to get this deal over with so we can preserve your lives. And instead, he rejects that and then flies off immediately to London, where he lands to adoring crowds and a very, very warm embrace from Keir Starmer.
You're very, very welcome here in Downing Street. And as you heard from the cheers on the street outside, you have full backing across the United Kingdom. And we stand with you, with Ukraine, for as long as it may take. And I hope you've heard some of that cheering in the street. That is the people of the United Kingdom coming out to demonstrate how much they support you, how much they support Ukraine, and our absolute determination to stand with unwavering determination and to achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine. So important for Ukraine, so important for Europe, and so important for the United Kingdom. So I'm much looking forward to our discussions here this afternoon. Thank you very much for taking the time to start.
With pleasure. Thank you very much, Keir. Mr. Prime Minister, having me here. And really, I saw a lot of people, and I want to thank you, people of the United Kingdom, such big support from the very beginning of this war. Thank you, your team. And I'm very happy that His Majesty the King accepted my meeting tomorrow. And I'm thankful that you organized such a summit for tomorrow. And we are very happy in Ukraine that we have such strategic partners.
Yeah, he's very happy. There's no doubt about that. He's certainly you see on his face, his body language, everything, he's very happy. And you just see all of these bumper sticker comments of everything that's positive, everything that Zelensky wanted to hear, Keir Starmer said. And there's a couple of interesting things. He said, we have this unwavering determination to help support you. He used one of the Biden era phrases, for as long as it takes. We're going to continue to give you whatever we can. This following this meeting, they announced another nearly $3 billion aid support package for Ukraine. The UK has said that they're going to give more this year than they have in any other single year of all this war. Heading into the fourth year will be the most ever supplied by the UK side. One of the other things he said there that I wanted to point out, because I mentioned before, you heard Caroline Levitt talk about that Trump was seeking for a peace, and he defined what that looked like. Keir Starmer says they also want a lasting and enduring peace. Now, that's a word you're going to hear several times, and did yesterday many times, and again today in Europe, that they're looking for an enduring peace. But are they really? Because how do they define a peace? Starmer mentioned a little bit of it there. You could hear it where he says your sovereignty is ensured, and basically everything that you want, you get. All the stuff that's on your side, you. And that's how they view a lasting peace, which is a win the war. You only get that if you defeat Russia. Because what no one has defined on the Western side, Europeans especially, is how do you think this war can come to an end? How do you think that the terms should be? What does it look like? See, the Russian side has been emphatic and crystal clear. It's the 14 June lines. It's the 4 administrative borders of the oblast. It's all of those things. It's the denazification, demilitarization, the size of the troops, all that stuff. They've been very clear. Europe never has. Europe has never said what it's looking for. It has never said, here's how we think the end should be. Trump was looking at, here's a negotiated settlement with the financial terms and giving us a financial stake so that we're involved in it. And then we're going to talk to Putin. And he knows where Putin's entry lines are. And so they were going to work about trying to have a negotiated settlement. That's the whole point of the Riyadh meetings in Saudi Arabia and all the subsequent ones that would have been coming beyond that. We still don't know if those are going to happen or not. But now then the question is, what does Europe want? What do they think? Well, going by their comments, they are still locked in this maximalist view on their side. They want Zelensky to win the war. Here was Ursula von der Leyen, president of the European Union. She tweeted out, this is, I think, also on Friday. Yeah, it is. Your dignity honors the bravery of the Ukrainian people. Be strong, be brave, be fearless. You are never alone, dear President Zelensky. We will continue working with you for a just and lasting peace. There's that phrase again. Then you had Kaja Kallas, who is the European Union foreign minister, went a little bit further with the fight and didn't go as far with the peace. She says that Ukraine is Europe. We stand by Ukraine. We will step up our support to Ukraine so that they can continue to fight back the aggressor. Continue to fight. You don't see the word peace anywhere in this. Today it became clear that the free world needs a new leader. It's up to us Europeans to take this challenge. So that's also on Friday. That's after the debacle in the White House. So that was a clear dig to the President of the United States, because the United States has always been the leader of the Western world, et cetera, the leader of the free world, as we've said. And now then they're saying, you know what? Maybe there needs to be a new leader of the Western world. If this is how you're going to treat Zelensky, maybe we need a new one. And that the word peace doesn't even enter into her description there. And you have to wonder that. So do you think, then this is a genuine question, Keir Starmer, Macron, Ursula von der Leyen, Kaja Kallas, do you actually think that Ukraine can win the war? That they can fight and win the war? And if you're just looking at the some of the other things, let me show you some of the stuff that some of the other Europeans have said here, because this is really interesting and telling. All right, so this is from CNN. Western allies rally around Zelensky after Trump's bat deepens rift with Europe. And then you roll down here and you see some of the comments that some of the Europeans have made. There is an aggressor, which is Russia, and an attacked people, which is Ukraine. President Macron said, "Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians do," wrote German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. "Therefore, we are working on a common path to a lasting and just peace. Ukraine can rely on Germany and on Europe." You saw Kaja Kallas there. Ukraine, you'll never walk alone. Others down there, Canadian Prime Minister, Russia illegally and unjustifiably invaded Ukraine. For 3 years now, Ukraine have fought with courage and resilience. Their fight for democracy, freedom, and sovereignty is a fight that matters to us all. Australia's Prime Minister, continue to stand with Ukraine for, there's that phrase again, as long as it takes. We stand unequivocally with Ukraine in their struggle, and we regard that as a struggle for upholding international law. And the list just goes on and on. So you can see that nobody in Europe is thinking anything except, let's just keep fighting. But then one has to ask, what are you fighting for, and what do you expect to succeed here? What do you expect to accomplish? Did you forget about the year 2023? I know that's ancient history to some, but it's not that far back. And what happened in 2023? You had, after the first year of the war, when Ukraine had what's going to turn out to be its only successes, operationally successes, where they drove Russia out of Kherson city in the south and out of the whole Kharkiv region, or at least a large portion of it, like thousands of square kilometers in the Kharkiv area in the north. And that was toward the end of 2022. From that time, the United States and all of West, and under the Biden administration and the Western Europe, they started providing thousands, as it would turn out, thousands of tanks, artillery pieces, armor fighting vehicles, mobile artillery, the tanks from multiple different countries, all the ammunition, rockets, missiles, air defense systems, anti-missile systems, etc. All kinds of stuff. Training at NATO locations in parts of Europe, intelligence support, targeting support, long-range missiles. I mean, it turned out to be everything that you could imagine. The offensive utterly failed to unseat even the first of 5 Russian lines. So the offensive that they had set up, and you know, I've shown you many times that the David Petraeus and other leaders like Ben Hodges, General Hodges, they all said Ukraine was going to win. It was going to be great. They were all profoundly wrong. And tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian men paid with their life for that arrogance and that presumption, which an elementary analysis of the balance of power would have shown you it's not going to work. Anyone who knew how the Russians built defensive lines and the capabilities they had and the capabilities that the Ukraine side didn't have could have told you easily, and I did, months before it happened. I told you why it was going to fail in detail, and it played out that way. Not because I'm some Nostradamus who can see the future, because I can read a map, because I'm not afraid to look at the reality wherever my personal opinions and emotions may lie. I can read a map. I can understand fighting doctrine. I can understand how wars are fought. I shouldn't be the only one that can figure this out. So why then were all of these experts did all this stuff and actually thought, according to some of the reports out in the U.S. Pentagon under Biden, some of their leaders actually said they thought there was a 50-50 chance that it could work. I said, there was no 50% chance. There was a roll of the dice hope that for some unknown reason, Russia would just panic and run, because that's the only way that there was even a possibility, even a theoretical possibility. And that's only theoretical, because if you've studied anything about the Russians, you know that they don't just run away. They are tenacious fighters, and we should have understood that. But 2023, they seem to have forgotten about that. What about 2024? That wasn't quite as long ago. Maybe they can remember that. 2024, you had from January all the way through to December 31st, a non-stop Russian advance. Now, it wasn't a huge amount of territory. It was fairly sizable, but it wasn't huge. But what nobody in the West still to this day seems to understand is that Russia's objectives are not territorial like they are in the West. That's a byproduct. Their primary objective is the destruction of the Ukrainian army. If they destroy the Ukrainian army's ability to form a coherent defense, then the whole country will fall to them. See, that's what we don't understand. This attritional warfare, Russia has millions more men to put into this. Even if they lose hundreds of thousands, they have millions from which to draw. The Ukraine side doesn't have anywhere near as many, and they are now to the point to where it's, of course, as you know, forced mobilization, terrified young men. They're trying to get younger and younger because they've run out of so many of the other categories. And they've already devastated, by many reports, probably 1 million killed in action or wounded so bad they can never come back. And millions more have been wounded to other degrees. Vast percentages of them, apparently up to 50 to 60%, are suffering one form or another PTSD. That stands to reason when you've been fighting as long as they have under these horrific conditions. So you're weakening the fabric of the Ukrainian armed forces because that's the objective of the Russian side. And they did that methodically through the entire calendar year 2024. Everything that we did has failed to change that. This is what the Europeans, I want them to finally see the reality here. This 2024 was when Biden had his full, as long as it takes, basically whatever you want, blank check. They gave them here. They had F-16s, they had tanks, they had artillery pieces. Do you realize that we have given the United States alone, just the United States, over 10,000 military vehicles of all different categories? 10,000 vehicles, 500 million rounds of ammunition, 4 million artillery shells of various calibers. That's just the United States alone. And it didn't stop the loss throughout the entire 2024. Now then you have President Trump, who says, as you saw Carolyn Levitt here, the blank check days are over. So you know that there's not going to, whatever's in the pipeline already from the Biden era, and he pushed a bunch of stuff out the door, or started that process in January, even before he left office. So that stuff's still rolling through, but it's a trickle now, and there's nothing new behind it. And it's very clear now, even before the blow up in the Oval Office, there wasn't going to be any more. And yet you have the Europeans still saying to this day, fight on, keep going. And here's what I'm trying to do. Here's the message that I'm so hard trying to drive home. I've been talking about since the beginning of this video. This is playing right into Russia's hands. You talk about the West, how I showed you like Trudeau and several of these others. One aggressor, it's Russia. Putin's the bad guy. He's the evil one. You've seen through some of these other comments, of course, Zelensky, absolute hatred for Putin, etc. So all of the view on that, that's what Russia is, right? That's what they say about Russia. So, of course, they have to lose. But if you really feel that way about him and you don't like what he's taken up to this point, why would you want to help him take the rest of it? Because that, my friend, is where we're headed. We've shown you what Europeans are saying. We've shown you what some of the Americans are saying. Here's what the other side of the equation, which you have to understand, because it is an equation. This is not happening in isolation. It doesn't matter if the European Union says, yeah, we'll keep going here. It matters what the other side's equation is. They're viewing this as, hey, you've helped us out. Because the equation, even their own language, they use this. This is RIA Novosti today. The equation is not bad, but this gang forgot to include the main element in it, the Russian army, which will divide all these intricate formations by zero. The other day, Vladimir Putin said that the main reason for today's cardinal changes in the world is the valor and daily victories of our armed forces. This means that our eternal enemies not only postponed, but also accelerated their defeat. And Zelensky's long tongue can lead not only to Kiev, but also to Odessa and Transnistria. Let me show you on a map what we're talking about there, because what you have here on the screen, this is the current battle map situation here. Okay, this is the line of contact. These are the administrative orders of the regions, which I've mentioned to you before. But here is Odessa in the south. Here is Transnistria, way, way deep into terrain currently held by Ukraine. And of course, Kiev is right here. Lots of yellow in between here. You had Zelensky himself tell you last month that there were, he claimed, 150,000 Russian troops up in this area here in near north of their border, and some in the Belarus area that could come to the south. There's also been, I've shown you Russian reports that there are 200,000 Russian troops just somewhere in this vicinity here, which could come any place, whether the Pokrovsk or down in the southern part in the Kherson area. It's unknown, but this is where there's a substantial Russian forces in addition to the 700,000 that are on there now. If President Trump made his deal with Putin, the Ukraine side would lose these gray areas right here, and Russia would keep all those that are currently red. That's how it would work. Everything else, Ukraine would get to keep. Everything, to include Odessa, access to the Black Sea, all those things. No more people would die. That was the deal that's being offered by Putin, which Trump was prepared to agree to, because Trump realized they don't have the leverage to compel anything less than these. But there is something more that could be had. Now, I just showed you there. This is the map as it exists right now, and I showed you that the Russian sides are saying today, hey, this is a great deal, because you're basically taking that. One of the other articles I saw in the Russian media said, hey, you're basically taking off the table. Anybody they can't even blame us or accuse us of anything anymore, because now then Putin had peace on the table and you took it off. Putin offered peace in 2022. You wouldn't take it. He offered it again in June 2014. 2024 rather. You wouldn't take that either. Now they're saying this last one here with Trump was the last one. And because you guys did it, now then no one can blame us, so they think. No one can blame us if we keep going. Now, that's the Russian side. You can say, oh, that's just bluster. No one really believes that. Well, let me show you one more thing here, because this is Austrian Colonel Marcus Reisner, who has produced, in my view, one of the best, from the start of this war, the most analytical and unbiased view of just militarily what's happening here. This is what he's saying is the risk if the Western side does not accept the Putin deal.
A lot of people think, especially in the West, that this zone is pretty much going along the front line, maybe also going to the north, which is pretty much representing the border in between Russia and Ukraine. The Russian perspective is a completely different one. The Russians want to have everything east of Kiev. Why? Because already now it is possible, theoretically and practically, by using long-range weapons like the Storm Shadow, to hit a target by using that rocket from the area east of Kiev in direction of Moscow. So any demilitarized zone from the Russian side has to be pretty much everything east of the Dnieper to avoid any threat to Moscow by using from the Ukrainian or even European side missiles like the Storm Shadow. And if you now look in the Russian social media, then you pretty much can already see that idea. So you can see that pretty much Russia has occupied in the future maybe everything east of the Dnieper. And they also want to have the terrain to the west of the Dnieper in the south, because they want to deny any access of the Ukrainians to the Black Sea. They want to control Odessa, and they want to have a land bridge to Transnistria. And that will make Ukraine a landlocked country with no access to their important resources in the west and in the south of the country.
Wow, that is a stunning view here. That's what's possible. Now, that's Austria. So at least somebody in Austria or Europe is paying attention. We've had Colonel Jacques Beau on here from Sweden, or Switzerland rather, and he says the same thing. He's actually got a whole book coming out on this risk here, apparently just within a few months from now. So some do recognize it, but none of the leaders do. Right now, these leaders are playing directly into Vladimir Putin's hand. That makes it easier for him to take that. He has the military capacity. Whether that takes another 6 months, whether the Ukrainian military collapses and he can just roll vehicles straight up to Odessa and just occupy it, or whether he has to fight on, and whether the Ukrainian military will continue, despite everything else, still fight on and have to be extracted city by city and field by field. Russia will do that, even if it took another year of fighting. They will do that. And the reason why on that video, you see, it's a security issue for Russia. They have to get to where they think even whatever missiles that the Ukraine side will have can't reach Moscow. So they want to push it back so that the range of those missiles is less than their capital city. And if they have the military wherewithal, why would they stop short of ensuring their own national security on their border? They've already invested, in their view, a tremendous cost, over 100,000 dead, 250,000 wounded, and whatever the actual number is. Some suggest it's higher than that. It doesn't matter what it is. It's huge, and the Russians recognize that it's huge. And to them, the price that they have paid would make it unthinkable to stop short of that line. They were apparently willing. Putin was willing to minimize that and to go against what a great many in Russia want, which is that yellow area you saw. They've been willing to, Putin was willing to work with Trump to actually stop short of that. If Trump is not there on the playing field to do that anymore, because Zelensky took it off and the European Union has embraced him and said, yes, we'll keep fighting, they are handing a golden opportunity to Putin, because now even in his population, even in his country, he can make the case, we have tried peace every way you can imagine. From before the war started to back to 2015 with Minsk, December 2021, April 2022, June 2024, now then February 2025. They have tried everything in the world, and the European Union rejects it and will not have it. So now then Russia and Putin with his people say the only alternative left for us is to pay whatever price is necessary to conquer the rest of it. And that is probably what they will do if we don't change course now. And unfortunately, based on what we see today, and there's another European Union meeting today and another one on March the 6th, where they're going to talk about giving more and more money. I think up to $6 billion is what they're shooting for. All they're doing is laying the foundation for the destruction of Ukraine, the deaths of hundreds of thousands of more men, and a tremendous victory for Russia, gift wrapped and handed to them. Thanks, Europe. Well done. That's what you're gaining here. So on the optics of it today, Europe looks great. A lot of people are embarrassed about the United States because they say, oh, see, look what the Europeans are doing. And, they're warmly welcoming this hero and all this stuff. That'll play today. It won't play at the end. It won't play at the end, and it won't keep any Ukrainians alive. That, unfortunately, is the harsh truth. We'll continue to watch this for you and see how it plays out. But, folks, that's just the ugly truth of where we are and where it's going. But you can count on Daniel Davis Deep Dive to keep you updated and informed of every step of the way. And we'll see you next time on Daniel Davis Deep Dive.